everybody, so we're back talking some more Titans on the channel with the final episodes, part 2 of season 4, which is very bittersweet. Even though sometimes I wasn't a big fan of the direction the story would take, usually I did find some fun watching the series over the course of these 4 seasons. So with this being the final stretch of episodes ever for the show, I was hoping that we could actually have a satisfactory conclusion for the fans, while also wrapping everything up with the Brother Blood storyline. Full disclosure, I have seen all 6 episodes of part 2 of season 4, so this is more so a general review of the entire part 2 at large. So I'm going to be trying my best to keep things as spoiler-free as possible, but there's definitely going to be some times where I talk about things that aren't going to be in the first 2 episodes that dropped this week on HBO Max, because this week on HBO Max, you're getting episodes 7 and 8, and then the following couple episodes are going to be 1 per week. And if you haven't already known that by now following the channel, I do weekly spoiler reviews as the episodes drop, so if you want to hear my in-depth spoiler talks for all the episodes this season, make sure you stick around and subscribe to the channel. Of course, with the wild way that part 1 ended, Sebastian finally turning into Brother Blood, the Titans being transported away, the twists and turns in part 2's story leading up to the finale go into a multitude of surprising directions. Some of them I thought were pretty fun. Other ones did leave me a bit perplexed by season's end. Part 2 of season 4 starts off very unconventionally. The race to stop Trigon's resurrection still feels very prevalent, but it's weird in the way that we start off the season as far as where the Titans are ending up after they disappeared out of the cave. The first 2 episodes that you're going to get to see this week, episodes 7 and 8, give off very strong WandaVision vibes. It's very weird how similar they felt. Given the fact that the Titans are stuck inside of this town filled with so many mysteries that lie underneath the surface, but if there is one major positive to these first 2 episodes of part 2, I would say it gives us some solid development between Corey and Dick Grayson. A big part of where I think part 2 does excel is in the character work. Most of the team has some strong development. Corey in particular, I think, has some of the best development overall. Just seeing her continue to wrestle with her convictions and regrets from part 1 with Sebastian, unsure if she's going to be able to take him down if she needs to, which also applies to Rachel, playing a much bigger part in general in the final episodes, grappling with her new cool powers and the awesome new costume she got in the part 1 finale. It's a real shame, though, that Raven does not really wear the costume all that much. It's actually a big bummer, I would say, across the board for all the Titans and the villains as well. Most of the time, they don't suit up. All 6 episodes, maybe 1 or 2 episodes, you get to see them a lot in their big costumes, all the outfits, which is an unfortunate thing in a superhero show when most of the time you're watching someone like Dick Grayson fight somebody in like his Sunday church clothes. That does lead me into talking about the action a little bit here. I think the action, for the most part, the sprinklings we do get over the course of these 6 episodes are pretty solid. There is a variety here. Dick Grayson isn't the only one getting in on the action this time around, although I do think for the most part Nightwing has the coolest action sequences, but you also get some variety with people like Gar. Gar has his own episode dedicated to him, and he has one of the coolest action sequences I think Beast Boy has ever had in the entire show. And one of the more surprising action sequences probably is the ones with Tim Drake, because Tim Drake in this part finally gets to don the Robin costume. The Robin costume looks so cool on him. Tim Drake in general in part 2 I think fits the team dynamic better, and I think fans are going to love the boost that Tim has in this part when he gets to go off to Gotham City and meet up with Jason Todd in one of the episodes. That's the episode, I think, where we get to see the Tim Drake that we all know and love from the comic books. If you're a big fan of Gar like I am, you probably have been disappointed over the course of these 4 seasons as far as his development and the fact he hasn't had as many moments to shine compared to some of the other Titans. Thankfully, they fixed that in one of the episodes in season 4 part 2, where it's an entire adventure following Gar. It's one of my favorite episodes of part 2 because we get to see Gar go on his exploration into the Red, giving his character a lot more depth, and like I said previously, one of the coolest action sequences I think Beast Boy has ever had in the entire franchise. It does make me wish overall we had a better VFX budget, because his sequences when he does transform do look a little silly at times. The other cool part about his episode is there are a couple familiar faces that join in on the action. I don't want to give away too much about it, but you obviously know that there is a cameo confirmed for Stargirl, and the cameo for Stargirl is in this episode that involves Gar. It is very fun seeing the 2 of them interact with one another, seeing the worlds collide, if you will. Temper your expectations, though. It is very much a cameo. There is an extended sequence that follows Gar in the same episode that I think DC fans are going to be very hyped for without giving too many details away. It's going to be on Twitter and social media in general, I think, immediately once the episode goes up. Now let's talk about Brother Blood. We finally saw Sebastian change into Brother Blood at the tail end of part 1, so that was something that I was very excited to see in this part 2, seeing him finally flourish as the big bad of the season. And I do think there are genuine flashes of brilliance where Joseph Morgan flourishes as this dark twisted character, but it doesn't fully live up to the expectations given because of the fact his character in general is all over the place in part 2. Depending on the episode that you're watching, Sebastian either is this uber confident character ready to invoke his evil plans, and in other episodes, he just meanders and doubts his self-worth, getting sidetracked far too often, which is extremely frustrating because we figured that would go away given the fact that he has claimed his powers. It's not even a knock on Joseph Morgan's performance. I think Joseph Morgan is doing the best with the material given to him, trying to showcase the duality of this character, but there's not a lot given to him to showcase him as this big menacing villain. He doesn't have very many interactions with the Titans team at large till the very end of the season, and instead we have this stupid app. The stupid app that he was trying to create is coming back in part 2, and it's one of the most irritating aspects, along with the fact that you have this amazing Brother Blood costume that was teased way before the season even begun, but I genuinely say this, it is criminal how little Brother Blood is in the Brother Blood costume. It's one of the things that bothers me a lot about season 4 part 2, like I mentioned before. Very little costume action. It's a superhero show that has the people, the villains and the heroes not wanting to suit up most of the time. With how amazing the costume work is in Titans, I just think that they should be on screen more. There's also this very odd dynamic that's built up over the course of the season between Sebastian and Connor. Connor as a character in general in part 2, I don't want to say too much about the character because a lot of his character stuff is spoiler heavy, but he feels very directionless as a character in part 2. At times, almost I would say he's unnecessary to the major plot. It's difficult to describe his part in part 2 because he's not necessarily with the Titans and he's kind of sort of working with Sebastian. It's all over the place without saying too much. Head-scratching decisions like this kind of plagued the overall storyline in part 2. Part 1 felt much more focused story-wise with the Titans and Sebastian, whereas part 2 feels at times like they're just stretching a paper-thin story to pad out 6 episodes. There are multiple episodes where they're stuck inside of a town, various different side missions. One episode, Nightwing fights this weird ghoul-like creature, and I kid you not, there is a several episode stretch in this where Sebastian could have very easily initiated the final battle, and he just chooses not to. He has everything in his power to get to the final battle, his purpose. He'd rather just do other things, which is a real shame that the story in this meanders too much. The story at large, there are points where it is kind of interesting in the fact that we are tying everything back to season 1 with Trigon, but even as they try to answer as many questions as possible leading into the series finale, there are still a large amount of questions that still go unanswered, which is an unsatisfactory feeling for longtime fans of Titans. Obviously, I won't spoil what those things are, I'll leave them for the spoiler reviews, but there are a lot of things that I still feel are hanging in the balance as far as the world at large. Once we do get to the big endgame battle in the finale, I do think it is pretty satisfactory. It didn't build up as good as other seasons have to their conclusion, but I left mostly happy with where the story concludes, and we even get a glimpse at what these Titans will be up to now that we aren't going to be seeing them anymore in future installments, future seasons. All in all, I left somewhat satisfied with the final episodes of Titans Season 4. There are certainly elements at play here I thought were extremely strong, like the character work I think is the best part of this part of the season, but I do think overall, in general, part 1 was a bit stronger in general. Overall, though, as a season, I don't think it's the worst season by any means, but I wish it did end a little bit stronger given the fact this is the final stretch of episodes. But once you get a chance to check out Season 4 Part 2 of Titans, make sure you share your thoughts down below. What'd you think of the episodes? Did you like the episodes? Did you not like the episodes? Were you satisfied as a longtime Titans fan on where we conclude things? Or did you leave underwhelmed? Either way, share your thoughts down below because part of the fun is having that conversation with you guys in the comment section. Make sure you leave a like on the video and also subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for spoiler reviews because they will be coming in the very near future. But until the next time, I'll see you guys later.